Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story Double 1. You Cannot Outrun Humans, written by the Caleb Mack. By the Void Mother's bells! The profanity should have earned the vessel guide a swift yet pain-encouraged death. But given that the whole of the hive was now tumbling across the edge of the planetary gravity well and into an uncontrollable descent into atmosphere, the indiscretion was overlooked. Gravity waves still beat upon the hulls of the small hive fleet, the last survivors of what had been a grand and massive invasion force sent from the homeworld to conquer this arm of the galaxy, as so many had been sent before. At this time, the invasion had been blunted, stopped cold after only turning 3 worlds into 4 hives, and now each was lost. One turned into a glass ball with atmosphere of poison gas. Another was now nothing more than debris fields slowly turning into rings around another nearby planet. But the last, the demons, actually took it back by force, with a speed and ferocity that was never before thought possible by any or all of the great mind queens. The demons arrived like a wave of seas smashing into one stranded in a storm. Weapons that spewed metallic rocks like a hailstorm, plasma like solar flares, and lines of light like red hellfire, burning twice as hot, swept the horde from the planet, nest by nest, nursery by feeding pod. So the hive ran. Yet the demons followed, swifter than reason, or just out of sense of range. Every time the hive fleet paused, the demonic humans followed close behind, and nothing seemed to stop them. Cripple one ship, 3 more took its place. Try to consume another, it would detonate like a small star, bait the fleet, and their fighters would swarm you from behind. The only time the hive was not on high alert was in hyperspace, where the humans did not dare to follow. Yet always they seemed to be waiting on the edge, gravity bending about them unnaturally, stalking. Always the humans stalked. Except when they just ran you down with their unholy warp drives, bending gravity like space, like a meteor impact on a moon, but in the very void itself. Madness! We cannot stand that which refuses to die, which refuses to turn loose of us, refuses to let go. The Hive Queen was having a nightmare again. The Hive Queen was having a nightmare again. Her garbled cries of distress distant beneath the present. "Stupid bug," muttered Jaxo as he went about cycling through the security feeds. "You can't outrun humans." End of story. Story number 2. Cold Iron, written by Crumb J.D. "Leave, Faye," I said, putting as much command into my voice as I could manage. The fairy turned towards me, and for a moment I was stunned. Every part of him was perfect. Every feature was utterly ideal. Every line of his body just as it should be. Every hair in place. I wanted to drop my sword and swear service to him just so that I could follow him wherever he went and be forever in his presence. Instead, I twisted my sword such as the icy pommel met the small patch of bare skin between my glove and my coat. The push of glamour against my senses retreated somewhat, and I was able to growl out my command a second time. "Leave!" "I won't," the fairy said in his fine, musical voice. "I have need of a child, and I haven't taken one yet." It glanced up, and the fire escaped above the creature. Apparently, he intended to jump onto that, and then climb up to some apartment and snatch a baby. The fairy held the sack, and now that I knew what to look for, I could see the outlines of an infant, but still and unmoving, an inactive changeling. And I won't allow it. I took a step forward, moving my sword into a guard position. The fairy drew his own sword. I felt an odd flicker of entirely mundane jealousy. The fairy wore 15th century court attire, complete with scabbard for his blade. I carried my own around in a modified trombone case. It wasn't nearly as convenient. There are some odd advantages to being completely oblivious to the passage of time and the shape of human culture. The blade was silver, not silver-colored, but actual metal. The Fae had no use for iron, and the magically enhanced metallurgy can do some impressive things. It looked like congealed moonlight in the otherwise dark alley. I'd assumed that we'd get right to the knife work, but the fairy surprised me by asking, "Why not? I'm not doing any harm." There was a bit of a pout in his voice. "How do you figure that?" It's simple. You humans love your children, right? No matter what they like." I nodded, though I mentally added, "mostly. Some kids have a rougher time than they should." "Then there you have it. The human parents will love this." He hefted the bag slightly. "It won't matter if it's duller, slower, or more sickly than a real child. I, however, have proper standards, and thus I will have the real child to keep me happy. Everyone prospers." The fairy smiled, and it was chilling, because I knew he believed every word of that. They can't lie. It said that there's no soul, so they can't create anything, not even something as simple as an untruth. It's also why they take human children. A human slave can do many things that they can't. If society knew about Fae, I expect arguing morality with a fairy would be an expression. It would mean the same thing as pounding sand or pissing it to the wind. I decided to fall back on a more universal concept: violence. "Oh no, my sword is cold iron. You don't want to fight me, and I don't want to fight you." The fairy set its bag down, indicating it took my threat to at least slightly seriously, but raised a single quizzical eyebrows. "Iron may be, but is it cold? Some iron is cold, so cold it burns like ice in the deepest winter, but not all." His words drew my attention to the chill seeping through my gloves from my sword. On a night like this, I would have been able to hold it for long bare-handed, and if any sweat leaked through my glove, I'd end up frozen to the hilt. Of course, that wasn't what the fairy meant. I launched a weak lunge at him. I made it so slow that even an untrained human probably could have blocked it. The Fae was stronger, faster, and more graceful than any human, so my opponent had no trouble. He parried negligently, holding his sword to the loose, sloppy grip that would have made my old weapons instructor slap him. After deflecting my attack, he returned his sword to a guard position that could only be called such with considerable charity. Still, none of that meant that he was bad with a blade. It meant he assumed that I wasn't any sort of threat. I took a step back, disengaging, and asked, "Cold forged iron, then?" "I know nothing of forge meddling. It is beneath me. Like a horseshoe, the metal is just beaten into shape without heat." The fairy shrugged, but I noticed a prick of concern in its eyes. "Horseshoes are often cold. Did you beat your sword into shape then?" Sometimes I feel an urge to snicker at inappropriate moments, but I suppress it. At any rate, my sword certainly wasn't cold forged. Cold forges causes metal to crystallize, making it brittle and weak. My sword is spring steel, wickedly tough and flexible, though it could hold an edge better. Instead of answering, I launched another attack. This time it was broadly telegraphed / better blocked than parried. Giving my incompetent first strike, the fairy thought nothing of catching my blade against his. The cold forge does one other thing, or at least it did in the old days of manually pounding bar stock into horseshoes with a mallet. It magnetizes the material. To the best of my knowledge, the Fae have no expression for cold neodymium. However, when I rolled my sword, such as the flat and the bar of the stuff set down at the center of the blade touched the fairy's own silver sword, he was well introduced to it. The magic on the silver sword broke. No, it went feral. The sword shattered into 1,000 razor-sharp splinters in defiance of any conventional explosive physics. Every sliver splinter arrowed directly for the fairy. It staggered back and swore harsh, sibilant words in an unfamiliar language as it was pierced. I didn't stop to listen. Instead, I stepped in and swatted the fairy himself with the flat of the blade. His glamour broke instantly, revealing something man-shaped but strange, angular, and inhuman beneath it. The creature screamed. It wasn't a human sound. It was like a train had locked all of its wheels in a panic stop as it skidded down rusty tracks. It went on and on, so loud that I dropped my sword and staggered back with my hands over my ears. Then the scream faded as the darkness swirled up from the ground and sucked the creature back into its own reality. It wouldn't be back soon. End of story. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Estrella the Dreamer, Tryagain95, Futic Yol, Meridian117, Alithia, Jordan Bucksbaum, Angry Marine, Albard and Gusta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.